We know that the master kept some variations of what we might be termed rabbinic or Pharisaical customs and traditions, not a blanket statement for all or most traditions of the elders by any means. But I think we and many scholars would agree the master kept participated in some of them, those that didn't conflict with the Torah, prophets, abuse, and twist the mitzvot, etc. If we agree upon the above notion, then my question is this: should we consider or possibly elevate those specific customs, and only those specific customs the master kept, as having divine status, since the master himself participated in them? For example, and he gives an example of discipleship. Like, we don't see discipleship anywhere being talked about specifically in the scriptures. But he says, the Torah might allude to this. He gives another example, the wine cup, and I think that this might get more to the point. The wine cup at Pesach, should this be considered or be elevated to divine status, since the master partook in it himself? Okay. I think that this can actually be a somewhat quick answer to this question. My personal belief is this: if it's good enough for Yeshua, it's good enough for me, right? If the Lord did it, then certainly I think that we are on safe ground if we do it as well. With that said, do I think someone is sinning if they don't have a cup of wine at Passover? My answer to that would be no. What if and we could get into rabbinic thought patterns on this. What if it's not wine? What if it's grape juice? What if it's not juice at all? What if somebody has, water, but it's in a cup like Christ had? Is that the same? So there's many levels to this. I think that what Christ is saying when he says, "Do this in remembrance of me," is the Passover meal itself. And I think that is in the Torah. It is commanded in the Torah. Now, certainly there are some passages where we see things that are commanded that we don't necessarily see as outright commandments in the Torah. However, I think we can see throughout the Tanakh, the Old Testament, we can see various case laws for all of the things that Christ does talk about. So, for instance, he says, the Torah says, do not commit adultery. But I tell you, if you lust after a woman in your heart, you're committing adultery. And some might say, well, that's a new commandment. But we see throughout the Torah itself and throughout the prophets that we are to circumcise our hearts, and that we are to, stop bringing your stinking sacrifices there, stench in my nostrils. Why? Because it's a heart issue. So Christ is bringing out the truth that is already there. That would be my answer. Do you agree or disagree, Rob?
I think that if we look at Yeshua's Passover supper as an institution where it says drink, as often as you drink it, kind of thing, as sure. Paul calls it, then that is a good thing. But that's not at all the same as the rabbinic insistence on wine in the Mishnah. Core being is that there is no obligation to drink wine at Passover that is not pointing to Yeshua's shed blood for the renewed covenant. In other words, in my view, if someone said, "Oh, well, I keep the rabbinic Passover and I do all the wines," and you have no mention of Yeshua's shed blood for the Brit Hadashah, then you've not fulfilled any. Then having wine at Passover didn't benefit you at all, right? Just so the right. point is, yeah. And then back into the idea of a discipleship model. Sure, right. The rabbis had a discipleship model, but so did the early church fathers, right? Like, who is the there's some second century authors. Polycarp, right? I think was a disciple of John, sure. if I remember. Okay, so just because there's a model of discipleship later in that's kind of codified and memorialized in rabbinic texts, like in Mishnah Avot or even in the Zohar around Shimon Bar Yochai, that doesn't mean that therefore we're adopting the rabbinic picture of that. And I guarantee it's not the same, because the ideology of rabbinic discipleship is that the rabbi has an authority that goes all the way back, traceable all the way to Moses at Sinai, that was right. orally transmitted from generation to generation. And when you become a disciple, the Talmidei Chachamim, the disciples of the sages, are imagining themselves to be part of a curriculum of learning to be transmitters of the oral revelation that Moses was given at Sinai. That has nothing to do with the ideology of Yeshua believers.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.